She stoops to most levels, but she has few exceptions. Being Norwegian, I will sleep in a tent outside. I will not sleep in a tent inside.
I'm Charlie Sohn, a screenwriter and journalist.
I'm Agnes Reese, a pop singer and songwriter.
And this is Mysteries of the Euroverse.
On today's Season 2 premiere, we're looking at Eurovision and the Avant-Garde.
First, we deep dive into the edgiest acts that have ever graced the Eurovision stage and explore the tension inherent in putting the artistically adventurous in front of nearly 200 million people worldwide.
Then, we talk to Eurovision avant-garde icon, Konstrakta, whose In Corpore Sano was the surprise hit of Eurovision 2022.
Finally, we introduce boundary-pushing theatrical legend Charles Busch to some of the wildest acts that Eurovision has to offer in a game we're calling Vampire Lesbians of Eurovision.
We take a look behind the scenes at all the scandal songs and queens. So come along as we traverse all the mysteries of the Euroverse. All the mysteries of the Euroverse.
All right, we are back with our very first episode of Season 2.
Welcome to Season 2!
Agnes, how are you? I've missed you so much during the hiatus.
Yes. Haven't seen you at all.
Haven't seen you at all.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about the weird and the odd today. We're talking about, as they would say in France, the avant-garde.
That translates to avant-garde.
Yeah, or avant-garde.
I like that you went full on Milwaukee for that. That was pretty good. So today we're talking about what I'm calling the Eurovision avant-garde. You know, we have been talking a lot about Eurovision and its goal of expansion, having pop hits, getting themselves out there as a contest. And like all of that is normally talked about as one thing, right?
Right.
So
the charts.
The charts, right?
And,
it's like...
And we're guilty of it too. All the time.
We're guilty of so much.
Yeah. Our very first episode in Season 1 was all about Eurovision in America. And we very much told that story largely through Eurovision's presence on American charts.
We would talk about it in terms of moments like Lorene's performance of Euphoria in 2012, right? Finally having like a legit pop song representing the contest. When we did our episode from Mama, the story was Angelina Mango, like these Stardust songs that really seemed like they were breaking through and really did, you know, in a certain way. But then you look at the other artists who really broke out, right? You know, some of the top streaming songs, Baby Lasagna, Yost, Bambi Thug.
A huge part of the staying power of Eurovision is the weird.
Yeah.
Is the odd, it's the different. And often gets kind of twisted in the storyline of it, where people are like, oh, this weird ass contest.
Right.
It's a little bit to what we talked about last year with the like Loreen versus Karya in a way.
100%.
You know?
So thinking about the avant-garde, there are two elements. You know, the first element is this idea of a point. And that point has to, in a certain way, have some sort of controversy.
Karya is interesting as an example here. Second place, Finland, 2023. Because he's actually someone who shies away from politics. Look at what happened with him performing last year. He didn't then go out and make a statement about Palestine or Israel.
Right.
He's just like, well, I'm staying away
game.
from this stage now since it's gotten so politicized.
Yeah. Why I wouldn't call, let's say, a Karya fully an avant-garde is there's stuff that's stylistically innovative.
Right.
And then there's stuff that uses its stylistic innovation to make a broader point.
It's kind of the like, Lonely Planet versus Taylor Mac.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
So that element of critique is actually like a huge part of what we're talking about. Now, the other element of the avant-garde, technique that surprises people. An artist who wants to change what reality is, who wants to critique reality, is going to, I think, often live in a space where they're using tools that aren't just about depicting reality. Not always, right?
Yeah.
A lot of realist art can be political. If Karya isn't avant-garde because there's nothing like deeply controversial about the message of his song, I would argue that Jamala's 1944 isn't avant-garde because it's realist, right?
Would you say that if you're in Bushwick, Brooklyn, like Michael Bublé is what's avant-garde?
I would find it incredibly avant-garde if Michael Bublé ever set foot in Bushwick.
No, but that's right. It's like, it's funny because I mean, obviously it's a joke, but definitionally, avant-garde always has to be a minority art form.
Yeah. Which is, I will say, the amazing and complicated thing about the phrase Eurovision avant-garde, right? What happens when you take an artist who, within their specific cultural context, has been revolutionary and even incomprehensible to mainstream society? You take them and then you put them in the context of a family show in front of 200 million people. Having established those sort of boundaries, we're just going to take a look at a few of the more memorable sort of Eurovision avant-garde acts and use those models and what was successful and what wasn't to talk about where the Eurovision avant-garde is today. The first person who I kind of wanted to talk about is Silvia Night.
Congratulations!
So Silvia Night is a character, and that's the important point here. A character created by an Icelandic woman named Augusta Eva Erlendsdottir. She had a TV show called The Silvia Night Show. She was somewhat of a comedian.
One thing that we're going to sort of consistently see is these avant-garde performers very often are bringing skills that are from outside of the music business, right?
Even though she did end up becoming the voice of Elsa in Icelandic.
I mean, the ultimate avant-garde project. Frozen. Augusta's first impulses as a creator are not just going to be to think about the tune.
No, absolutely. Like, it becomes its whole project. And people were obsessed with prank TV. And as someone who grew up in a small country, we can have big celebrities that can over and over again prank people without needing to disguise themselves because they know that everyone outside of that country will not recognize them and won't get the joke.
100%.
And that's kind of what the whole Silvia Night project in some ways became.
Yeah. Thinking about it in a prank context is one thing, but Silvia Night in the context of Eurovision very much satisfies what we were talking about as these sort of two pillars. The first is that, like, the character had a point to it. The idea of Silvia Night is that she is modern pop culture reduced down into its purest, worst, most absurd form. Her interviews were in character. Her public appearances were in character. And this is where it really started to become avant-garde performance art. So starting with her song, which was this song called Congratulations. And this, I think, will give you a bit of like who her character was. I'll fucking win. Too bad for all the others. So congratulations, I have arrived. The joke is she's congratulating the audience on her being there.
Surely she couldn't say fucking win.
Well, this is actually part of the story, right? So this is the original version of that lyric that was submitted to Eurovision was the vote is in, they say I win. Then in both the videos she released and at the rehearsal on the Eurovision stage, she starts singing, I'll fucking win.
The vote is in, I'll fucking win.
The EBU obviously reminds her that Eurovision does not allow naughty words like that. She responded by saying, I'll fucking say what I fucking want. Now, again, this is not Augusta, the performer, just being angry at the EBU. This is her leaning into this idea of Silvia Night as this ultimate egotist. Silvia went on to claim that Carola, who, if you remember our Eurovision Icons episode, is a iconic Swedish Eurovision
She was
performer.
representing Sweden once again.
Yes. Silvia claimed that Carola only qualified for the final because she had sex with the head of the EBU.
It's particularly interesting with Carola because she had already won Eurovision in the past.
Yeah.
She was beloved. So the fact she picked on her, it's kind of like, again, it goes to the ultimate narcissism.
But what I think pushes this into avant-garde performance art is it's very clear that a lot of people believed her. You watch the semifinal of Silvia Night taking the stage, the entire audience is booing her.
And also, this is also a time when social media isn't of the size that it is now. Of course, it existed, but today within hours, we would all learn that it's some form of character and everyone would be like, this is just annoying.
Yeah, it actually did not really land at all at Eurovision. She did not make it out of the semifinals, but she continued the bit. She famously threw this tantrum where she slapped her boyfriend and threatened to jump off a bridge. She then started spitting at the journalists around. And this is a direct quote.
Ungrateful bastard, you vote some ugly people from Finland that don't even have a real makeup artist. And you don't vote me because I'm not a slut from Holland and I'm not the ugly fucking old bitch from Sweden. And
this is not good.
Now, our Eurovision fans will probably recognize that she is talking about Lordi, Treble, and Carolla.
I will say, I think this is proof that the bar in Europe for who can be affiliated with Disney is much lower than America.
Yeah.
She got Elsa?
Yeah. Well, she did let it go.
Oh, boy, did she.
But even in this era of pre-virality, I think that you see the effectiveness of this kind of oppositional performance art because that tantrum had 1.3 million views on YouTube.
You could barely watch YouTube on your phone at that point. And it's this idea that the performance stretches so much beyond the performance.
Yeah.
That's what Sylvia and I really understood. And we see many other successes of this very thing. Someone we've fondly spoken about on this podcast, Let 3.
Yeah.
Mamma, cupilla traktora.
How would we describe them, Charlie?
They are a Croatian punk band. A band called Let 2 was founded. They added more members. They became Let 3. And, the things that we see that are consistent, right? Some of the members have organized art festivals. They have released children's books.
They have been responsible for the creation of a statue of Angela Merkel taking a shit.
Yes. So to talk about the aesthetic language, right? That Let 3 uses. How would you describe the way that Let 3 is dressed and appears on stage?
There's a certain femininity in the makeup, while their clothing is more militaristic, more masculine.
Yes.
Then also, performance-wise, they perform in their underwear, and outside of Eurovision, even further, will perform with everything hanging out.
Yes. That kind of militaristic drag started out as a critique of traditional militaristic masculinity. When you're talking about nationalism, you can subvert the idea of nationalism because you're subverting what's supposed to be this tough guy look. You can talk about sexuality using this, and they have been very much at the forefront of gay rights in Croatia. And then there's an argument for liberty. As you said, they love getting naked in public, right? Which famously they put corks in their asses as a way to get around playing completely naked despite public obscenity laws. Now, they didn't win that court case, but...
They didn't win that court case?
They didn't win the court case, no.
So, Mama... I didn't sneeze. That's the name of the song. Is about how Lukashenko bought Putin a tractor. A very common theme for a pop song. The visual performance, at one point, they literally have a missile or rocket that they're holding while they're wearing their militaristic outfits and the feminine leaning makeup.
Here's a band who has used the same language to talk about a variety of issues from localized Croatian Serbian politics to personal liberty. Obviously, again, there is a complication with bringing an avant-garde act to Eurovision.
Yes. So much so that there was a person basically backstage at Eurovision checking that they had underwear on before they got on stage.
Right. Both this and Sylvia's outbursts get at the fundamental tension that this is a great vehicle for Eurovision to achieve what its goal is, but it rubs up against something that Eurovision is particularly sensitive about, right?
No, that's true. But it's also tricky because it's kind of the moment the avant-garde lives too hand in hand with the EBU, it's not avant-garde anymore.
Right. Exactly.
So it kind of has to be in opposition. And in a way, the tension is what it is.
Yeah. No, 100%. All of these artists have very strong opinions. How do you get the breakout excitement of a Yost without the breakout excitement of a Yost, And I think you're right that you don't. So it's a constant navigation.
Moving to another instance of some avant-garde at Eurovision.
Yes.
Hatari. There is the weird thing about Scandinavian countries, despite being among the happiest in the world, really loving some dark music.
Yeah.
Hatari is a hard rock, punkish band where their visual very much leans into S&M.
Yeah.
It's giving Sex Dungeon.
It's giving Sex Dungeon mixed with militarism. Hatari is not explicitly queer in their presentation.
But they're not.
They're not. And the BDSM of it all, I think plays a similar role for them that the makeup plays for Let 3, queering the military. Another thing to note about Hatari is that they don't call themselves a band, right? They call themselves a multimedia performance group or an art group. And so here we see a similar thread, right? Like, this is, as you said, about more than just the music, right?
It's House of Hatari.
It is kind of the House of Hatari.
And now they competed in 2019.
Yes.
Which was the year that Israel was hosting Eurovision.
100%.
It was in Tel Aviv. And they were the most outspoken contestants about being critical about Israel and not being super into the fact that Israel was hosting. Hatari, even though they were repeatedly told they couldn't, took out Palestinian flags when the votes were given out.
Right.
Iceland, are you ready? 186 points.
And we go to France. Our next country is France.
So many artists from 2019 on the international stage might have been forgotten by now. But Hatari is repeatedly part of the conversation because the conversation has to do with Palestine and Israel's participation. I think that's a perfect transition when we talk about that staying power to talk about Verka Serduchka.
Yes.
Hello everybody, my name is Verka Serduchka. Me English Liechtenstein. Let's big dance.
Verka Serduchka is a drag persona created by Andrei Danilko, who's a Ukrainian performer, represented Ukraine in 2007.
Yeah.
It's like a very interesting version of drag. There's no wig. The head is partially covered like a disco ball with a star.
Yes. She is meant to represent a very sort of normal, traditional Ukrainian woman. She is from a rural family. She's middle-aged, and she works as a railroad attendant. So again, we're creating a character who then can be sort of used in these different situations, right? There's her backup dancers who, again, are kind of in this queer militaristic thing. And then also you get the element of traditionalism that she can play with, right? With the character of her mother.
Dancing Lasha Tumbai was a number she did at Eurovision.
Yeah.
But the debate around whether Lasha Tumbai meant milkshake in Mongolian became a whole discussion. Of course, later, the reveal that it actually did mean Russia goodbye.
Right.
That in itself becomes so much more than a 3-minute performance. Now, in regards to Ukraine's resistance against Russia, she's become a figurehead of that.
Yeah.
Which is why she's also then selling out the King's Theater in Brooklyn, which is a fairly large house.
Yeah.
And larger than many of the Eurovision artists who've come through.
I didn't even think of this before, but like we saw 2 concerts not too far apart from each other, right? One was Kalush Orchestra, who won in the year before we saw them, right? And then there was Verka, who came in second, like you said, in 2007. Verka was in a giant venue that big stars play all the time. Kalush was further out in a smaller space that was not nearly as packed as Verka's. And like, I do think that speaks to the power of kind of avant-garde performance.
Everyone in Europe at the time was, we support Ukraine.
Right.
So there was nothing, that controversial about their participation.
Right.
What Verka did at a time when Russia was a part of Eurovision.
Right. So that's 100% it, right? It's the transgression, element one of the avant-garde. And then secondarily, the other thing that you said before is it's how far aesthetically outside of the box. So one other artist is Manisa, who represented Russia in 2019. She is talking about what it is to be a modern Russian woman. She's Tajik. Her parents were Muslim. The fact of her in 2019 in Putin's Russia going with a song called Russian Woman, already she's pushing back against that. Secondarily, she's pushing back against the idea of what a woman is, right? Mm-hmm. Because she's playing with this sort of like folk iconography, this traditionalist iconography.
Right, and then she opens up this very cool contraption. It looks like it touches the floor, but it's essentially on wheels.
Yeah, it reminds me of, do you remember when Melissa McCarthy played Sean Spicer?
Yes.
She's just like has the podium that's a segue.
Moves.
Yeah.
Then she opens up that traditional thing, steps onto the floor with her own 2 feet. Now she's in control.
Right.
She's dressed less traditionally.
It's not at all surprising to me that of the Russian Eurovision artists, she has probably been the most outspokenly anti-Putin since the invasion. The fact is that she had already created kind of an iconography that allows her to talk about this, right?
Right. No, absolutely. And it again comes down to this idea that when these topics come up, they're the ones you're going to think of.
Yeah. I want to transition into our next interview.
Yeah. And speaking of it, avant-garde,
right.
What is about to happen has been a long time coming.
Yes.
We have heard Charlie talk about a certain artist many, many times. This certain artist has been the background on his phone for years.
Yes.
So how could we not start season 2 with finally the meeting of Konstrakta and Charlie and me as well? But
Konstrakta represented Serbia in 2022 with the song In Corpore Sano. In this conversation about what makes the Eurovision avant-garde, Konstrakta is the ultimate in that.
And then we play a very fun game with Charles Busch, someone who is an icon of avant-garde queer theater.
Charles Busch, for those of you who are not obsessed like I am, has one of the longest running plays in off-Broadway history, Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, and also has the longest running Broadway comedy of the past 25 years to his name, The Tale of the Allergist Wife.
But before we get to Charles Busch, let's take a listen to In Corpore Sano and throw it over to our interview with Konstrakta.
Megan Markle,
We are here with Konstrakta, who took Eurovision by storm with In Corpore Sano, and who, incidentally, was the artist who caused me to fall in love with Eurovision in the first place. So, Konstrakta, welcome.
Okay, you're welcome too. And this is our studio. At the moment, there are a few individuals from here. Alice, me, Milovan, and this is Joca.
So can you talk about your early relationship to music and how your first band, Mistake, came about?
Yeah, if I can remember. It was 25 years ago. I guess it was the year 2000, and Milovan, this guy here, he was the member of Mistake. Mistake was a vocal instrumental band. And at one rehearsal, we got an assignment to go home and to figure out our, nicknames. And I came up with this Konstrakta. I thought that it was funny and maybe it described my approach to making lyrics, constructing lyrics.
And what is the relationship between you, Anna, and the persona of Konstrakta?
Well, surely Anna has an impact on Konstrakta, and also Konstrakta has an impact on my personal life. But I'm trying to approach to Konstrakta as a character that I'm building through the stage and through my music. So I have a distance. It's she. It's not me. It's she.
Mistake wrote songs in English, but since then you've sung in Serbian. So can you talk a little bit about that transition and what the experience of writing and singing in each language is for you?
Well, if you are listening to Mistake, you can hear that this English language is a little bit awkward. And back then I thought, this is hilarious. I tried to make it some awkward English. I think that I invented some words.
Yeah, I invented grammar.
And then we realized that trying to reach this European market or trying to get out of Serbia with your songs, that was really, really hard here. So we decided it's better to focus on this market here, on this audience here. So we just went to Serbian.
Moving to Zemlja Gruva, can you talk about the origins of that band? And specifically what Grooveland is. I've heard it has a constitution and it's also your recording studio.
First of all, this is a flag of Grooveland. You know, we had it in our studio. This is Grooveland.
I didn't know you had a flag. That's amazing.
We made it 15 years ago.
We wanted to make a state, but it wasn't so. Yeah. But Fela Kuti did it, once.
Yeah.
We wanted to do the same thing, but we didn't have people with weapons.
We had the constitution there, and this constitution consists of only one rule. Everyone in Grooveland has to be happy. So it's kind of contradictory because one cannot be happy by force, but this was the rule. Everyone has to be happy here. And we managed to be happy, really. Those were really nice years. Zemlja Gruva was founded 2008. I was pregnant back then. And one of the first appearance of Zemlja Gruva in public was on our national competition for Eurovision song. And next year we also compete in our national competition for Eurovision song. I was also pregnant. So, yeah. And as you can see, we didn't pass, neither in 2008, neither in 2009. But I got 2 kids.
Exactly. And the big question would be, if you were pregnant, would you only be able to have 5 people on stage, not 6? Do they count?
Oh, that's the question.
Depends if people know or not.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't.
That's the question for regulations there. And if you have twins
or triplets or quadruplets.
Zemlja Gruva at the beginning had 14 members because, we want many people to play with us. So we had this brass section with 3 people. We also had 2 guitars.
It was like, give me some more. Give me 1 guitar. Give me next synth, And it was so many instruments.
So we didn't earn money, as you can. We had to split everything on 50.
At the end, Petar Milanovic, he was angry because he was paid as much as everybody else. And he left the band. Communism is in our souls. We couldn't.
That sounds like the title of a new song. Communism is in our soul.
Capitalism is all around.
Yeah.
Talking about your solo work, one of the big themes that goes through a lot of it is the lack of meaning in modern life sometimes, and how we try to cover that up with commercialism or kind of listless routine. And people don't have anything to believe in anymore. You've got that line that I think is in both Žvake and Zabava. I believe in this, I believe in that. Can you talk about that through line?
This is the world we are living in, where we are exposed to so many information and you are just disoriented there. So you just believe in this and that. You are bombarded with information, I don't know whom to believe, but this is the world we are living in.
You follow up Žvake with Nim Shamana. Which is about a kind of spiritual commercialism. Can you expand on the idea of that song and talk us through the idea for the music video? where you appear to be somewhere that's part beauty salon, part operating room.
Yeah, I have to remember this video. Now, shamana, it means I don't have shaman. So in this world where we are lost, this shaman thing is just, many people see this as a solution, and we are consuming some exotic practices, spiritual practices, in order to feel better. And it's getting weird. I don't know. Also, you can say, I believe in this, I believe in that. Today, I believe in tarot. Tomorrow, I will consult some astrologer. And the day after, I will go to the dentist. Maybe he can help me or something like that. At the end, this is like spiritual consumerism, consuming exotic spiritual practices which had their own tradition, their own reasoning. And you come from out of space and take something of it in order to get better.
Name Shamana was maybe inspired partially by Amena Yahovich and her scene as shaman after her divorce. Noble, obviously, is partially built around an interview that Sharon Stone did. And obviously, In Corpore Sano opens with the Megan Markle clickbait headline. So can you talk about your use of like pop culture figures in writing lyrics? And how do you think that allows you to more vividly communicate kind of the point or underlying issues?
It's a kind of shortcut, to get to the point. Those women are not that important as just the representative of something. I remember that in Eurovision, all of the questions were mostly about Meghan Markle. And I guess I just disappointed many of them because I'm not interested in Meghan Markle. I don't know anything about it. But, even if I'm not interested in their lives, I'm also bombarded about the information about them. So Meghan Markle is one of the top search
subjects.
Top subjects. Yeah. When you want your news to be heard, you just put Meghan Markle in it and it will be right. Maybe we should put Meghan Markle in this title about our podcast.
Good point.
Yeah.
Speaking of In Corpore Sano, it was released as part of a triptych. Were all three parts conceived at once? And we'll get to Ivo Obechevam later, but that also has a three-part structure. So is there any reason in particular that you're drawn to that sort of mode of storytelling?
I have to be honest that for triptych, it wasn't made on purpose. It's just that those songs were created in the same time. Somehow we decided to put it in a one.
And I know why. Because we wanted to be cheap. Konstrakta said, that was the reason. And Konstrakta said, we don't have money to make video for every song. So let's, for one day, record whole 3 songs.
The thing with these kind of forms where you have 3 parts of a song or several parts, it's convenient because you can approach to the subject from many aspects, This number of 3 is kind of in our subconscious and people like 3, you understand?
But yeah, it's like beginning, middle, end. We have all these story structures that are 3-part like that.
Yeah, maybe it's Christian-like also. It's
yeah.
But on the other hand, it's really convenient because in the way that I choose a subject, many times I'm ambivalent about the topic.
So moving to the Eurovision staging of In Corpore Sano, there are very strong parallels with Marina Abramovic. She famously is brushing her hair as a comment on how an artist must be beautiful. You wash your hands as a comment on how an artist must be healthy.
Maybe this transition from beautiness to healthiness of nowadays is this transition that the society made from 70s where this Marina Abramovic work was done to today where we are,
wellness, self-care, all that. Yeah.
I just wanted this compulsive action to be on stage all the time for 3 minutes. It was this year that we also tried to compete for Eurovision song with the song Novo Bolje. Maybe you know that one.
Yes, yeah.
We have this compulsive action, but now it's not washing hands, it's making bread.
There are some people who, when they heard that song, they thought it was like a reference or a critique of Vučić, who's campaigned on the slogan, faster, stronger, better. So was that intentional? And no, okay.
No.
And then, because there was, sorry.
Auto-referentno, I'm just referring to my own.
Your own, yeah.
Yeah. To criticize this need always to get better, newer, bigger, smaller, faster, prettier, and it's not reachable.
It's interesting, though, because there is something in the sort of critique in your work of neoliberalism, like at least in the States, like we look at the rise of the right-wing figures here as caused by the emptiness of modern society. People need something to believe in. They need a strong man. They need nationalism.
Yeah, this right-wing rising is a global phenomenon. It's present here as well, and it's just a logical consequence of
all the liberalism that we use.
Right.
Now, Eurovision is obviously such a particular brand. It often gets associated with campy or over-the-top work. On the other hand, the space it has for theatricality and its visual nature does lend itself to storytelling. How do you think about what the Eurovision culture is, and how do you reconcile who you are as an artist with this giant global brand?
I heard many times that we somehow was a little bit out of context in Eurovision. Then I got there with prejudices. I was like, but nobody then will understand what we are doing. But on my surprise, we were very well accepted there, and everybody understood what we are talking about. So Eurovision is open for many forms, many expressions. There is kind of avant-garde in Eurovision, even with this year's winner.
Yeah. So just to talk a little bit about Noble, which I have to say is my favorite song.
Klavir čini da mi moj mali stan izgleda noble. Brown drvo i zlatni napis Petrov.
It's the first part of the triptych. It is fundamentally about aging, but also a lot of the lyric, obviously, is the singer talking about taking comfort in kind of bourgeois trappings, like owning a piano to seem noble. So how do you see that connection in that song between the fear of death and aging, and also our need to present as sort of wealthy or refined or cultured?
From the point of view of an ordinary woman, man, this aristocracy seems like it guarantees you the eternal life. This wine, this nice glass, this piano.
The triptych is tied together with the scene of you eating chicken across the table from a man. This thread reaches a really effective climax in the third part, Mekano. Can you talk about how the idea for that scene came about?
At the time, I was fascinated with ASMR videos, and mukbang also. It's like
yes.
Where you were watching somebody else doing something.
She was a YouTuber in another life, is what she did.
For me, it's nonsense. But this is a human phenomenon. We like to watch something to do in our name, Also, you can say that Megan Markle has a beautiful hair in my name, When she has a beautiful hair and I'm watching her having a beautiful hair, it's like, in a way, I have also beautiful hair.
You very often reference the sort of sacred or the religious. There's the Latin in Corpore Sano. When you did the acoustic version, it was very Last Supper with everybody at the table.
Umetnica mora biti zdrava, biti zdrava, biti zdrava, biti zdrava.
And then even the imagery in the Žvake video. And this sort of sits alongside references to contemporary pop culture, the mix of the sacred and the profane.
This is also a shortcut because Christian language and Christian symbolism is something that is in our collective subconscious. Many of images that I'm using are from Catholic and we here are in Orthodox.
You believe in this and you believe in that, right? The video for Evo Obeće vam. The idea of bringing those three directors to the piece and doing it in segments, these three segments that then also form a really coherent whole, for me as a viewer, it kind of like invited me to think about how depression and anxiety are often two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, I agree that many times depression and anxiety are from the same basket. These are the main symptoms of our society today. For this video, we invited three directors, and that was maybe the first time that I was like, I don't want to do anything. I will let them do whatever they want in order to get diversity. I have to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Cut out for a second.
Satisfied that you did the investigation.
There's so much to talk about with your work. It's really just incredible. So it's
a compliment.
Speaking of your lyrics, they are so striking. What's your writing process like, and how did you sort of develop that process?
I see the topic that I'm interested in, then I'm collecting the words from everyday language that describes this. And I put so many words in a document, then I'm trying to clean it until I can come to this simple language which is connected to the topic that I'm talking about. The only principle that I have is to be simple, but true somehow.
Speaking of topics that you're interested in, I was wondering if you could tell our audience a little bit about the work you've been doing around AI recently, and particularly with the latest concert.
Yeah, we had this big concert in Belgrade where we presented this new song about AI. It's like 4 songs in a row. It's more of a radio drama. It goes from one genre into another, but the storytelling is connecting those genres. You can reach some kind of eternity through a transcription of yourself into digital. And there I was addressing my son, telling him that I'm going to be here forever for him. And also we used music we created with AI in like intermezzo between the songs. It worked very well.
Has working with AI to make music changed your impression of AI?
At the moment, it's very funny. It's very useful. It's also a little bit scary because it produces in 10 seconds something that we in studio need much more time to produce it. Everybody knows it's the big question for our jobs in the future. But I'm not afraid about the creativity. I'm not sure that creativity is on the table with AI. I'm fascinated with it. And at the moment we are using it to make some money on our
perfect.
to amuse people.
You don't need the 15 musicians anymore. You stay out.
And in the future, there will be just Konstrakta's avatar on the stage, and I will be just, eating popcorn and enjoying the show.
Are there any plans to perform, in the US?
We would like.
We would love to.
There is 15 of us. Find
That's
us.
Great. If you wanted to come,
please do.
All right. We beg you. You have a lot of fans in New York City, so we got to figure that out then.
On our very first episode of this podcast, we had Jerry Mitchell on. He has 3 Tony Awards and has directed many Broadway shows. And we showed him your video, and he really felt like there was a future where you're on Broadway. So if this is something you're interested in, I feel like we got to make it happen.
That's just a little bit of hope.
Okay, this is the end of the podcast. Leave it here.
Konstrakta, Grooveland, thank you so much for spending time with us. This was really amazing.
Yeah, this was really fun for us. Thank you.
Euroverse.
For a show that bills itself as family entertainment, Eurovision has featured a surprising number of acts that push the boundaries of what mainstream pop music and performance is.
It can be thrilling to see these offbeat, surprising acts presented to a mainstream audience of nearly 200 million people per year. But some of them, when scaled up and removed from their cultural context, can lose their force. So today, we're going to explore what makes the gleefully bizarro, avant-garde, and absurd work on the Eurovision stage in a special game of Eurovision tops and bottoms that we're calling the Vampire Lesbians of Eurovision Edition.
So to help us with this, we're very excited to have someone very familiar with taking the downtown to the mainstream. Charles Busch is the author and star of over 25 plays, including The Divine Sister and Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, which is one of the longest-running plays in the history of off-Broadway. Now, his Broadway show, The Tale of the Allergist's Wife, received a Tony nomination for Best Play and is the longest-running Broadway comedy of the past 25 years. Charles, welcome.
Well, it's lovely to have you here in my modest little home.
Yes, thank you for letting us in. We normally don't get let into spaces like this.
They let you usually in a coffee shop or something.
There's even, we did an interview of someone who won Eurovision, who wanted to meet at a cafe in Copenhagen. The whole restaurant was full.
They're very nice in Copenhagen.
Yeah. This is kind of where I wanted to start our conversation.
So Charles, how friendly are they?
Can you tell us how friendly they are in Copenhagen?
I did a study abroad program for one semester in Copenhagen. It was like the sex capital of the world. I met this gentleman who said he was a count. He was very kind of mysterious, sexy, nobleman.
Yeah, like most of the noblemen in my life, I have to say.
Yeah. I got back to Northwestern and found out that he was now in prison, that he was the ringleader of a international antique thieving ring. Actually, that time we made love on a 16th century papal bed. It was stolen goods.
Doesn't that make it hotter?
In retrospect, it was kind of hot at the time. Really.
Yeah.
Then, of course, it wasn't until he started looking back, like, oh, wait a minute. That time that they asked me to pick up a crowbar on our way to the birthday party for his henchman. But, when you're young.
You're idealistic about counts.
I think, when you're young, you're in a foreign country, I guess people just buy crowbars for, their friends. There was this other boy, Terje, who was Swedish. Beautiful boy. Terje said, Rolando wants to take us to, I think, Rio, and we'd be leaving immediately. I mean, it sounded kind of marvelous, but I couldn't just tell my family that I'm off to,
Rio with Count Rolando,
and a whore,
Now, was the Swede stolen goods too? Was he a stolen antique? Or
many people had them, put it that way. But yeah, so I was really kind of disappointed, and then I got a postcard from Terje where he's back in Malmo explaining Interpol came in and arrested the count. And
this year's Eurovision was in Malmo. And the security situation similarly got really bad. They should have just given everyone crowbars.
That'll help.
Yeah. Why are you here?
Who are you?
Those are the two questions I ask myself every morning.
Are you famous?
Those are the questions my parents ask me. Yes, so the reason we broke into your apartment is we are going to play you one of these sort of boundary-pushing Eurovision songs that we've dug up. And you're going to have to tell us if you think it placed in the top half of the acts at Eurovision that year, or if it didn't place at all in the finals or placed in the bottom half.
Right. So before we dive in, what do you know about Eurovision going into this?
Nothing.
Amazing.
Great.
Nothing. I know the name. It's not on television.
It is.
It's been yearly on television.
In Greenwich Village?
Yes. First, we have the artist Konstrakta. Her song is In Corpore Sano, and this represented Serbia in 2022. I'm going to read a little bit of the lyric because the song is in Serbian. What is the secret behind Megan Markle's healthy hair? I think that the secret is deep hydration. As they say, one's skin and hair reveal everything clearly. Dark spots around the lips might mean that you have an enlarged spleen. An enlarged spleen is not good, not pretty. Because an artist, she has to be healthy.
It's not exactly Rodgers and Hammerstein, is it? Oh, what a beautiful morning.
I think, it's much more Poor Judd's dad.
Wow. So she's a satirical artist.
Yeah, it's satire, it's comment,
performance art.
Yeah.
Right.
She was trying to create a Marina Abramovich pop song.
Megan Markle,
she's a great looking person. I love her look with the black bangs and
yeah, it's like really, it's kind of a beautiful austere.
She's cool. And she's sort of elegant. She's not overdoing it. I think she's very cool and very kind of minimalist. And I would think that when she probably does her whole show, that it's performance art.
She was the last person, actually, I think, ever to open for Amy Winehouse. So, when Amy Winehouse played Serbia, it's like I found these videos online. She'll walk into like a middle school, all these like 10-year-olds, and they'll be singing this song as if it's
like as if Taylor Swift came through. It's like crazy.
Well, I'm trying to think of an equivalent. I mean, unfortunately, I'm so Miss Havisham here. I don't know if you noticed, there are many clocks and they've all stopped.
What it becomes about is like this sort of juxtaposition of the expectation placed on female artists to be beautiful, and also the fact that like artists in particular don't have healthcare. So there's this kind of interplay between like an artist must be healthy, but then there are all these issues.
I think that's very interesting, though. That she's contemporary satirical. I somehow have a feeling that she might just be a little too edgy for the masses. Maybe she's in the bottom.
She was in the top. She was number 5 out of 26 countries in the final.
Really?
Huge surprise
that's
hit.
fantastic.
That result is, I think, what made Charlie fall in love with Eurovision.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's very encouraging. We're so used to condemning our contemporary society for everything being dumbed down. And I'm just always encouraged when I see something and I think, really, the masses went for this.
So next we have Balia El Chiqui Chiqui from Rodolfo Chiquilicuatre, representing Spain in Eurovision 2008. The song is a parody of reggaeton, featuring references to pop culture figures and notably an incident between the King of Spain and Hugo Chavez, where the king told Hugo Chavez to shut up.
That lyric got cut before Eurovision because Eurovision technically has a rule that none of the songs are allowed to be political.
Because you could have thought that the
previous
one
song
was
100%.
Should I listen to it?
Yeah.
Well, he's got a real wild look already with the big wig on and. He almost looks like a drag king.
He definitely has.
With the fake sideburns and so he's doing a satirical rap. Do we know much about his career? Is he?
So he's primarily a comedian. Comedian and television performer, presenter.
Yeah, because he reminded me a little bit of when Lily Tomlin first started on television. She would do Tommy Velour, was a kind of a lounge singer character.
I say take those voting booths, pull those voting machines out, put slot machines in.
I feel like you're probably the first person to compare this guy to Lily Tomlin. I think that's incredible.
A bottom.
Yeah.
Too edgy for the masses.
A little too edgy, or I think kind of what you said too, where you're like, it's kind of hard to know what to make of a number like that. Like the clarity of perspective in the first number.
Yeah.
It's so intentional. Even if you don't know what she's saying, you kind of feel like every decision that's made was made for a reason.
Yeah.
You know?
She's also very charismatic performer. I mean, she was riveting to see her on camera. Kind of, there's an intelligence that was very clear. It was hard with this fellow to really see past the wig and
exactly.
And all that. When a performer has a real charisma, it transcends language.
Yeah.
There are a number of people, Catherine Deneuve, Sophia Loren in her early Italian films. But then she also had a great American career as well.
Yeah.
I always feel like whatever you do, as far as artistic expression, figure out what is it that you have to offer.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I decided to delve into cabaret performing, I thought, well, what do I have to offer? And I love Edith Piaf. And there's a song, La Foule, that I love when she sings. But I had a wonderful lyricist, Susan Birkenhead, has done Jolie's Last Jam.
Yeah,
she's a friend of mine. I had her translate the song.
Well, we can
teaser.
We'll send Konstrakta's song to Susan Birkenhead. She
Perfect.
Oh my God, what a crossover.
Take it from the Serbian. Susan.
So next is Gildo Horn's Gildo hat ich lieb, or Love Me Gildo. So this represented Germany at Eurovision in 1998. There's this kind of German music called Schlager. I don't know if you've heard that term. It basically just means hit song.
They mean it in a negative way.
That's how I would compare it to when you hear someone say, oh, great, it's a show tune. And you're like, that person hates musicals. But sometimes people go, show tune.
Yeah.
Like, that person likes it.
So this song is actually a parody of the sentiment in German Schlager songs.
Okay.
So the lyric, there was once a time of tenderness, when caressing and cuddling and loving were always written with capitals. Gildo loves you, so even if there are tears, he'll come over and sing songs for you. Gildo loves you.
Gildo hat euch lieb, und wenn's auch mal Tränen gibt, kommt rüber und singt für euch Lieder.
Oh, he's working the audience.
Yeah. Quite a performer, that guy, I think.
This is so European. This is definitely not.
Yeah.
Goes on in this country.
No, that's kind of a delightful thing. It's
It's very. Because he's just not conventionally attractive middle-aged guy. And he's running into the audience. And
we did one other interview today, and the comedian we were talking to also was like, it's so funny that like Eurovision will put middle-aged guy on stage in a way that
we don't see here.
We don't get that.
I've very good friends, this doctor and his wife, who are Americans, and they're in their 70s, and they bought a place in Portugal, and they're always telling me that it doesn't seem like in Europe that it's as ageist, and that they're so shocked that these young people who are in their 20s have actually kind of embraced them.
I think it's like also has to do with like our image of ourselves as a country, which is like we are the young country.
Thinking it was like funny when Desperate Housewives came out. There was this idea that they were like all old women in one show, and I just saw Terry Hatcher in Superman. I was like,
Golden Girls, but that was such a shock that that suddenly the people were interested in women in their 50s.
Gildo loves you. Did Eurovision love Gildo?
I didn't get too much out of it personally. Bottom.
So this actually was a top.
Really?
I do think that he has a certain personal charisma, but it's also that Schlager actually is something that the entire, I think, Eurovision community is very familiar with.
He really worked the audience.
Yeah. Okay, so next we have the group Les Fatales Picards with L'amour à la française.
So what country was that representing?
What's that?
It's representing France. Eurovision.
Shocker.
Sorry, representing France in Eurovision 2007. It's a love song using franglais, a mixture of French and English. And the lyric is, I remember pretty young lady, the last summer, us, the Eiffel Tower. I remember how beautiful you were. So beautiful with your Chanel bag. On the bridge of the Seine. Let's do it again, or again.
Wait a minute.
Susan, I've got another song for you.
This might need a
can you turn this over?
I remember une jolie demoiselle sur le sommet nous la tour Eiffel.
Well, these two guys are really cute. They're so retro. I mean, it's totally like out of the 70s.
Yeah. And this is, 2007, which is not the 70s.
We say that time is a construct in Eurovision.
Yeah, Eurovision loves a throwback.
It's so hard to know really whether something's a hit or resonates with people, and it's it's so foreign to our sensibility.
Right.
And that's kind of the interesting thing about Eurovision is like each individual country has its own cultural context and sensibility. So this is like very French, right? And like making fun of Frenchness.
Yes.
Yeah. I always found it interesting with drag that when I've seen drag performers from different countries, and you could see within just a certain kind of international drag vocabulary, they still were using stuff from their own culture.
We've had so many conversations about this. It's like having grown up in Norway,
the Danish, there's just cooler characters.
Yeah.
There was this girl that it sounds like I made up her name, but it's really true. Heidi Seidel.
Oh my God.
Heidi Seidel was kind of wealthy, rather privileged young lady.
Yeah.
But she was staying with families, and she left like 5 families within a week. And there was this woman, Hannah something, who was the head of housing, and she was another severe Danish woman. And I think
we met Hannah.
And I just happened to overhear them talking when Heidi was complaining. She said, "But I'm just not happy." And this woman, who was the head of housing, said, "Heidi, it is not necessary to be happy." And I thought that kind of
summed it up.
Summed it up.
But so, Charles, how do you feel the Eurovision community reacted?
Oh, they didn't buy it.
They didn't buy it. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
This was
right.
a definite bottom.
The guys are cute, though.
Yeah, that's true. Both bottoms as well.
Yeah.
So right.
Bottom on stage.
That was the problem. They were both bottoms.
Yeah.
I do find, though, that sex appeal is kind of a necessity, I think, for great success in performing arts. It's not about looks.
Right. It's sex appeal broadly defined. It's
like there's an inner sex appeal.
It's the story about Marilyn Monroe, like walking through the streets of New York. No one's like recognizing her. And she turns to her friend and she goes, "Do you want me to turn it on?" And this person says, suddenly the character Marilyn, she just turned it on. And everyone was like, "Marilyn, Marilyn." It's just something about that energy. It drew people right towards her.
Do you identify with this, Charlie?
I was just going to say, when we leave today, I'll turn it on.
Demonstrate it. There is something about taking stage. And some people know how to do it. I'm really just coming off like the oldest person in the world here. But anyways, whatever. Respect me. I remember when I was a teenager and I saw Lauren Bacall in this Broadway musical Applause. And it was a real lesson in a star turn because she just really had kind of a croak of a voice. There was a famous story that Ethel Merman was sitting in the front row when Bacall hit some big, applause number. Ethel Merman went, "Jesus!" But it was just big kind of fuck you. If you don't like it, why don't you try to do better?
Yeah.
And it would almost define star of this kind of just defiance. I'm up here and I'm fabulous.
I have like such an Elaine Stritch obsession for this exact reason.
Yeah.
When she took over in night music, I think the show ran like half an hour longer than it had.
Oh, yeah.
And the audience was on the edge of their seat the entire time.
So were the actors.
Well, that was the thing too. But you're so right, though. There'd be these long pauses. And yet she filled them in this, because she was playing a character who was about to die. It was so riveting in a kind of an avant-garde kind of way that went beyond Broadway musical.
No, it felt like I was watching Brecht.
It was like Brecht. Yeah. And I knew her a bit. I brought it up, in a polite way. I think I said to her, because I remember reading that she had studied in her youth with I forget the name of the guy.
Irving Piscator.
So I said, are you like using some of this kind of avant-garde technique in doing a little night music? Because those pauses are just so filled. And she said, "Oh, I just didn't know what the next line was."
So this is the Croatian band Let 3. I will give you a lyric, "Mama bought a tractor," and then the other lyric is "Mama kissed a moron."
Is it ever like just like a quiet, lovely ballad?
Yeah, but those don't make great podcast material.
Okay.
Mama ljubila morona. Mama ljubila morona.
I'm not sure I could do 3 hours of watching this TV show.
I mean, I recommend mushrooms.
What language is this?
This is Croatian.
Oh.
I mean, you did say you like maximalists, Charles.
Yeah, this is one of the most
Eurovision is maximalist to the core.
Yeah. It's all the staging and the set and he's... Did he take his clothes off?
Yeah, they're taking their clothes off now.
Well, I like that.
Actually, normally they get fully naked, but Eurovision would not allow them to.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a sexy guy too, right?
He has, to me, that kind of magnetic sex appeal that may not be out of traditional attractiveness.
I'd like to see more of him.
Let 3 is kind of a Croatian punk band. They're known for more political work. Their big attempt to get around the nudity laws in Croatia was that they got completely naked, but they had corks in their assholes.
So they were wearing something.
So their argument against the Croatian obscenity laws was that they were wearing something.
Well, that's sort of cool.
Yeah. I think they're very cool. I like them.
Can we see this on video? Are they cute?
What is it? An acquired taste.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell too much. But yeah, that guy was striking.
Energy to him.
Like, I think they're in the top.
Nailed it.
Yes,
they were top 10.
They were.
When you leave, I'm going to be Googling them.
The final number is going to be Verka Serduchka.
Yes.
Which represented Ukraine in 2007.
Yeah.
The song is called Dancing Lasha Tumbai.
Lasha Tumbai is not Ukrainian. The idea was that Lasha Tumbai sounds like something else when sung.
I want you see Lasha Tumbai. I want you see Lasha Tumbai.
She's singing in English too. I love their costumes. It does seem like a lot of the choreography is sort of calisthenics, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I find that sort of true of like everything we've watched.
So the hook Lasha Tumbai.
Yeah, I didn't get it. What?
Yeah, so the idea is that it sounds a little bit like Russia Goodbye when it's sung.
Verka Serduchka is a character created by this guy, Andrei Danlikov.
That was a guy?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I thought it was a girl.
So
we've talked about this on the podcast before, but there's an interesting thing that when it comes to queer rights, in response kind of to Russia, Ukraine has become much more pro-gay and pro-queer because
Putin is so homophobic.
Right, it's a way of separating it. And then you get someone like Verka Serduchka.
Yeah.
So suddenly like this disco ball drag queen becomes one of their faces of their resistance.
Isn't that wonderful?
Right?
It's wonderful.
First, we need to ask if you think Eurovision embraced this number.
Yes.
You are 100% right. So this song placed second overall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You've certainly opened my eyes to entirely new culture.
Well, what are your takeaways?
In what ways have you grown over the past?
What have I learned? What have you learned, Dorothy? Well, I feel
you were there.
Just hearing the phrase Eurovision, I thought it was kind of American Idol. I didn't know that it ventured into the political, and I can understand why it's this extraordinary phenomenon, certainly.
Yeah.
Have there been any just songs that have become
Waterloo would be the big one. The other huge success in a way that came out of Eurovision is Celine Dion.
Really? She came out of Eurovision?
Yeah. I mean, there are older songs too, like Volare was a Eurovision song.
Really?
Yes. Charles, thank you so much for this. This has been really amazing.
Having you here.
No,
oh my God.
So delightful.
We might move in. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Euroverse.
Oh my goodness, Charlie. Great interview with Konstrakta. What an amazing time in Charles Busch's apartment.
Incredible.
Now people are going to have to get used to getting us regularly again.
And you're going to have to get used to getting me regularly again.
Yes. But we appreciate you so much for joining us for season 2 on another crazy season of this little crazy podcast. And we'll see you again for the next episode. And until then,
Happy Eurovision.